Hello friends, Charlie Murphy here. Thank you for choosing my video. Tonight I'm playing a session of 1-2 No Limit Hold'em 6 Max regular games on Ignition. Table 2, I'm opening Jack 10 from the button. And I take it down. Table 2, going to open Ace 7 suited from the cutoff. Against a raise and a re-raise on table 3, I'll fold my 9-10 suited. Going to play cold 4-bet or fold there, and a hand like 10-9 is just too far down my list of potential bluff candidates. Table 1 will open blind on blind with Jack 10. Get called by the small blind. I will check to him on the Queen 6-4 two-tone board. Mostly check folding here without any kind of backdoor draw. Turn is a flush closer. The Jack of Diamonds giving me second pair. I don't want to give free cards. I think I'd rather go ahead and bet small here. Table 2, get a min raise from a recreational player blind on blind. I'll call with basically everything. A hand like King 10 is an easy continue. And he bets a little over 150% a pot, a real big bet on 7-6-3 two-tone. I'll just fold my overcards against that. Look to continue with strong hands or some good draws like open-enders or big flush draws against that size. Table 3 will open Ace-Queen from what's effectively the middle position spot. Table 2, that rec open limps the button. I'll try to sneak in with my Jack 10. I do get a Queen Jack Deuce rainbow board. I will check that flop to both players and see how they react. Text through, turn is an 8, straight completing card, but I do have a gut shot and a blocker to that straight. I'm just going to go ahead and jab for the minimum here. 1 into about 285 with my second pair and my gut shot. Checking a hand like that would also be okay too. Just don't want to put it in the big bet size. I think that's going to be a poor way to play Jack 10. But checking or small bet would be fine. Got a half stack posting in the cutoff, then checks after posting on table 2. I'm going to go after him with my Jack 10 on the button, isolating probably something like my cutoff open range, or maybe a bit wider because he's a post and not a limp. Either way, a hand like Jack 10 is plenty good enough to raise in this situation and try to take it down pre-flop or isolate against the half stack. Everyone folds except the limper. I get an 8-6-5 two-tone board. This hand really doesn't have any immediate draws. I was actually thinking about checking back and not range betting. When he bets into me for half pot, I'm just going to go ahead and fold. If I had a diamond in my hand, I think continuing becomes a bit better. But without any kind of backdoor diamond draw, I think I can just fold there. He is also pretty short, so even if I get some miracle runouts for that hand, I can't benefit that great from them compared to if he was deeper. So I think fold is going to be a little better. Table 1, get a 2.5x open from the button. I'll defend my big blind with ace-4. I'll check range on the flop. Decent flop for ace-high, 8-7-7 rainbow. Probably continue against a small bet. He does bet small. I'll go ahead and check call that one. Turn is a 7, putting trips on the board. It's 8-7-7-7. I've still got ace-high. One of the better cards for me on the turn. He checks back. River is the king. I don't really think there's much merit in trying to fold out ace high chops or any kind of like low pocket pair or card that paired the board. I think I'm going to check and just try to show this down. Could consider bluff catching in this formation as well, but I think check is going to perform better than bet in this spot. Now he goes and he bets small. That is probably trying to get thin cheap value, but for a trip board there for the small bet in the loose formation, I am going to pay it off in hero call. Yeah, he hit the king, which is fine and not surprising, but I don't have to be good very often there for that call to be a profitable call. I get a 2.5x open from a player that's playing a little bit short on table 4. I'm in the small blind with ace-jack. I'm going to 3-bet him. Maybe not use quite as big a size because he's shorter, so I'll go a little bit smaller. I'll go 10 blinds instead of 11, but still putting in that 3-bet with ace-jack. Table 2 going to open 3s under the gun, a little on the loose side, but I do have a fish there in position. I wouldn't mind being on the flop with him where I can hit my set and get a chance to win a big pot. These guys have 3-bet a little bit, but not enough to tell me the table is aggressively 3-betting as a whole, enough to punish me, and 3s is not a terribly unreasonable hand to open with anyway. Let's see, table 3, gonna open ace-king from under the gun. Gonna size up a bit because of this dead money poster here in the cutoff, but otherwise play pretty standard. Everyone calls me on table 2 except for the rec. I get a king-jack-10 rainbow board. I'm just gonna go ahead and check to him. We'll be checking range on that board, perhaps get some check raises in. Turn is a 9, puts a backdoor flush draw out there, also 4 to the straight. I'm going to go ahead and probe small and plan to follow through on the river, just because I think I can fold out a lot of nonsense on the turn or get some stuff that is going to call turn fold river. Flush closing river card, I'm not going to get too crazy and start over-betting here, just to have a spade blocker against a fish. I'm just going to put in a more standard type size and hope for the best. He raises me back. I just don't think that's going to be all that weak or bluffy from a fish. I'm not going to start getting crazy and re-bluffing him and jamming over the top. I'm just going to go ahead and fold. There on table 2, the guy that posted raised back to me. I got my ace-king all in against 9-6 suited. My ace-king held up. Table 4, I open ace-9 from the button. The big blind comes along. Get a 10-8 deuce rainbow board. He checks. I'm going to put in my small bet in position here. Could size up and split on a board like this, but I think range betting is going to be okay too. Get a 3x open from a loose passive fish that hasn't raised very much. It's only second hand he's raised. I went 6-5 suited in the big blind. In some cases, this is a 3-bet out of the blinds, although it's probably a little on the loose side even under typical circumstances. Against a loose passive who probably has a tight 3x raising range, definitely don't want to 3-bet him. Just going to go ahead and defend for a call. I've also got the other fishy player in the small blind on a half stack. I'm just going to take my flop. Decent flop for me, king 8-7, giving me an open-ended straight draw and a backdoor flush draw. Table 4, I got called on the flop. Turn is a board pairing card, the 10 that also puts a backdoor flush draw up. There's going to check back my ace-9 with no relevant suits. Table 2, going to check the 6-5 to the in-position player. Hope to hit my 4 when it checks through, which it does. I am now sitting on the stone-cold nuts. Table 2, going to go ahead and put in a value bet on that ace on the river. It is a flush closer. The top pair on the flop is pair, but I think I still can try to get some value here. The small blind player leads into me. Will be about 20 in the pot with about 40 behind. I'm just going to flat and move him all in on the river. If we brick out, try to leave the in-position player a chance to come along. Easier to play in the middle post-flop by calling as opposed to raising in most cases. He bets the river. He bets about 2/3. A call would have about 37, 38 in the pot with 33 left behind. Really nothing to do here but just move all in. Table 3 in the cutoff, I'm opening 9-7 suited. We'll go ahead and raise all in and just hope he didn't find a Jack 10 in his range here, but other than that, we feel pretty good about having this straight. Yeah, and that's a pretty decent river-sized bet, plus it was a multi-way pot, so I'm not expecting my river raises to get through very often against a recreational player because of those two factors. He had king eights. He had a pretty strong, he had kings and eights. He had a good two pair, but doesn't beat a straight. I did get my half-pot bet called down by pocket sixes. That's not terribly unreasonable hand to bluff catch against my bet check bet line, especially for a half-pot bet and in a loose formation. But that's why you have to mix in the value bets there too, because some players will know that that formation is in line and size is very bluffy and will start making hero calls against you. So you want to have some value to punish those guys too. As long as they're not raising you too much, and for the most part they're not, you're going to get away with it. Table 2, we get the recreational player limps. He's effectively in middle position. I am on my button with ace-jack, and I am going to pop him up with an isolation raise. And that hand with the 5-6, his mistake was made pre-flop by calling king 8 out of the small blind. Post-flop, his play is pretty reasonable, but damage was already done. Everyone folds except the limper. I get a king, deuce, two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small bet, see if I can't take this down right now. Be looking to peel an ace or a jack for bluff catching or value betting purposes on later streets. Was going to be checking pretty much every possible turn card, including an ace or a jack. Maybe if it was a club and there was a flush closer out there as well, which I didn't coordinate with, just to do a little bit of equity denial and or protection. However, none of that's going to manifest as we get check raised on the flop, and I'm going to throw my ace-jack high away. Table 2, opening 9-8 suited from the cutoff. Get 3-bet from the small blind. He's been pretty nitty so far, playing only 2 hands out of 21, but not a big sample, and he has been 3-betting. This is a second 3-bet. I don't know that he's particularly tight as regs go. I'm going to treat this like a standard spot. Facing a 4.5x 3-bet from the small blind. I can call this against regs, as long as I don't think he's too passive the way some of the passive fishy type players are. I can continue for a defense right here. Some backdoor equity on the queen 7-4 two-tone board. I've got 3 to the straight and 3 to the flush. He bets small, he bets about 1/3. I can continue here with obviously all of my sets, all of my top pair. I think I would continue with my ace-king offsuit that didn't 4-bet pre-flop. And I think some backdoor flush draws and mid-pairs can appear here. I think I'm really only folding sort of unpaired hands with no backdoor flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and float this one and evaluate the turn. Table 3, opening ace-5 suited from the button. Table 4, open ace-6 suited from the cutoff. Get a 10-6 deuce two-tone board against the big blind who checks to me. I'm just going to go ahead and put in a small bet. Just going to start stabbing with my no equity hand here that doesn't mind being check raised if he were to check to me. Instead, he bets 19 into about 35, 36, and I can fold my 9 high no draw instead. Table 4, face a check raise. I do coordinate with the board somewhat, and then I've got 6s top kicker. However, I'm just not really all that sure about what turn cards I'm looking for. You know, I don't have any ways to back into straights or flushes right here, and if I make 2 pair or trips, I can still be beat by the actual value hands on the flop. I think it's okay to go ahead and fold this, absent to read that he's a little wild with the check raising. Table 4, opening pocket tens from middle position. Table 1, going to open ace-8 suited from the button. Table 4, my tens get through to the big blind, who calls and defends me. We get a jack-3 deuce rainbow board. Checks to me. I'll be putting in a small bet here with my strong second pair, pocket pair. Table 1, the big blind calls, checks to me on 9-6-4 two-tone. Just going to go ahead and put in a small bet in that spot. Checking and sort of splitting your range here is also fine, probably even more so against a fishy short stack type player. He check calls. Turn is a flush closing deuce with no diamond in my hand. Ace-8 high. I'm just going to go ahead and check back, evaluate the river. Table 2, we get a 3x open from the button. I'm going to go ahead and 3-bet my ace-king out of the big blind. Table 3, going to defend the 2.5x cutoff open with 8-5 suited. We face a $1 bet into 10. I'm going to go ahead and basically treat that like a fancy check. And I'm going to go ahead and put in a bluff here with my ace-8. Going to call that small check raise with tens on the jack-deuce-3. Table 2, going to go ahead and put in a small range bet on queen 6-4 against the button caller. Table 3, going to go ahead and lead the turn small after the flop checks back. Against that follow-up turn barrel on table 4, facing the check raise with that king turn, just going to go ahead and surrender that one to the second barrel. My river, you know, bluff bet or bluff raise, whatever you want to call it, against the min bet on table 1 does get through. Table 3, I've got 8 high. Just going to go ahead and continue bluffing, try to fold him off some sort of marginal pair that he called the turn. And I expect this to get through a ton, but I do expect it to be better than surrendering and trying to check down 8 high and hoping it's good. Calls pretty quickly with king-queen, as he should, but I can still get those bluffs through often enough that I'm okay with that. I suppose you could also just check the turn and give up because you've got no real equity, and that's not the worst thing in the world. But those small turn probes seem to work pretty well, so it's really hard to overdo them to where you're really hurting yourself unless somebody specifically is onto them, and most players are not. Keep looking for better tables here on a Friday night. Do see some recreational players floating around, but my bottom 2 tables really don't look all that good, so I'm going to keep hunting for ones that are a little better. Did a 3x open for the middle position player on table 4. I'm going to re-raise pocket 9s on the button. Probably my worst pair, probably going to fold 8s or better, or 8s or worse rather, against a 3x open in this formation. Can raise 9s plus, ace jack plus, king queen, most if not all of my suited broadways, and a couple of suited wheel aces. Something like a 9 to 10% 3-bet range seems pretty reasonable here. Comes along for a call. Pretty clean flop for the 9s on a 7-7-5 two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and put in the small bet. Table 2, an open queen jack suited under the gun. Face a check raise here. I can float this pretty liberally. I can float this with all my overpairs. I can float this with my heart draws. And I can float it for the most part with my backdoor spade draws as well. Table 1, going to defend the 3x open with pocket 3s. Going to defend this check raise with the 9s, evaluate the turn. Table 2, going to check range to the fish on the 8-6-5 two-tone board. Can possibly check call with 2 overs in the backdoor draw. Table 1, I get a 6-5-4 rainbow board. I've got pocket 3s facing a small bet. I think I can continue against that small bet. Against the small bet on table 2, I'd call with my overs and backdoor. Against the pot bet, I'm just going to go ahead and fold. Table 4, we get a flush closer, the 4 of hearts. I think there's more merit in keeping this pot smaller, keeping his range wider, getting towards showdown and checking back. River is not too shabby for me, the 4 flush. Now the question is there any merit in trying to value bet this? I mean, I suppose his hero calls are going to be things like pocket 10s, jacks, and queens that called pre-flop and now actually still have a heart. I don't know that I'm getting called by too many smaller pocket pairs with the heart. So I'm really talking myself out of trying to value bet this. I think I just want to show it down. And I was against jacks with the heart. He's probably going to hero call me there. I don't even think it would be incorrect. So I think I just saved myself a good chunk of a stack by not trying to get overly aggressive with the value betting there. Just not enough stuff that's going to have me doing well when I'm actually called down that justifies it. And I can win that pot. It's showdown a decent bit too. Against any non-heart hand right off the bat, I'm already good. I think his pre-flop play is reasonable. Flatting the jacks as opposed to 4-betting in that spot is probably more prudent. And I like the flop check raise on that low paired board. Assuming his plan was just to call off if I jam back all in over the top. But yeah, I think he played it pretty well. Slowing down on that low flush closing card's not too bad. Then if he jams the river, I guess I have to decide if I want a hero call with the heart. Although I think I probably get away. I think checking to give me a chance to turn my floats that don't have anything into bluffs for him to pick off is a better way to play. So I think he played that jack's hand pretty well. Looked like the 2-seat was open limping up here, using very small bets on the river. Not that that's necessarily a problem out of position, but I think this guy is probably not a strong player based on what I've seen already. It's min raise against a blind on blind limper. I think this guy is probably a weaker player. Some janky broken stacks over here on this table. Stick around here and see what that means. But it sounds promising. Table 2, going to open ace-10 suited from the cutoff. Loose passive halfish stack recreational player min raises the cutoff. Another recreational player on a half stack calls out of the small blind. I will gladly call the one extra blind out of my big blind with Jack 10 and take a flop. Get a King 10-5 rainbow board. I'll check to the raiser. Goes and he bets 4 into 570 multi-away. I'm just going to go ahead and fold this, thinking he is probably strong given he doesn't raise very much pre-flop, but did this particular time, and now he's betting a pretty large size into a multi-way pot. And none of my outs are necessarily particularly robust. The jack gives me 2 pairs but makes straights. He could reasonably have ace-queen in his raising range. You know, in the 10s, I'm still in big trouble if he happens to have a set. Most cards are just going to sort of brick out there, and I'm not getting that great a price to begin with. So I think I can just go ahead and fold. Heads up, I wouldn't do it, but multi-way when I'm seeing a tight pre-flop range and then I bet into multiple players for a good size in a multi-way pot, I think I can go ahead and get particularly tight and nitty and just sort of overfold early before I get myself into janky situations later on. Table 1, open 4s from the button. Get called by that loose passive recreational player, and we get a King 6-3 two-tone board. Table 4 will go ahead and limp the small blind. Have a looks like a limper under the gun. He goes ahead and min bets into me 1 into 5. I'm just going to go ahead and ignore that and treat it like a fancy check and put in my small bet anyway. Just going to go ahead and pop up the ace-king suited on table 3 here against the guy limping on a 7 blind stack. He called my, my small raise. The limper calls me down with queen 9. He turns flops a pair, turns a flush draw, rivers a flush. But I'm not that worried about it, especially for a small pot like that. And I got it all in pre-flop with ace-king. Table 1 turns an ace. I don't really have too much going for the pocket 4s. He bets into me again. I'll just go ahead and get out of the way this time now. Table 4, get a Jack 10-3 rainbow flop that checks around. Turn is a 9, completing the rainbow. I've got the low end of the open-ender. I'll jab at that small. No reason to overbet, especially not multi-way with that kind of low end of the straight draw. Just looking to pick up that pot cheap, or maybe hit a 7. I guess the queen in theory could still be good too. It's a decent bit at the time. I get min raised. See, I mean, I'm getting such a good price, but if I hit the 7, it's still pretty obvious with the 4 straight out there. The queen also has a 4 straight. Now I've got the low end of it on top of that. Could already be against hands that have me crushed like Queen 8, King Queen. And he's not even that deep either, so even if I do think I've got the best hand on the river, it's not like I can do a lot with it. It's maybe slightly too nitty to fold here, but I don't think it's going to be that bad just because my draw really isn't all that good. Table 3, get a player limping the middle position. I'll isolate from the cutoff with Queen Jack. Another fishy short stack player out of the blinds. He comes along for a call, putting about a quarter of his stack in pre-flop, 4.5 blinds. The limper comes along too. We get a 10-8 deuce rainbow board, so I've got a gut shot and 2 overcards. Got about a pot size bet left over there. He's about 68, 70 blinds deep in a 13, 14 blind pot. I think I just want to go ahead and check this back, realize some more equity by getting to the turn. I guess my other option would be just move this guy all in on the flop for about the pot and force him to pick up a pair, call me down, and then I'll run my gutter in 2 overs. But I think checking back to realize equity can't be too bad a play. Now he puts 4 into 13 on that queen turn where I've hit top pair. I think I just want to make him put it all in right now. There are some cards that my hand doesn't love that could fall on the river, as well as action killers like the 9. I'm just going to go ahead and put my top pair in now. I'm probably going to call off with any pair. Calls off with the open-ender, King Jack. Which means it's possible he would have just check folded it on the river, so I'm glad I got him in on the turn now while the getting was good. Small pot, but still, you want to play all the pots as correctly as possible, big or small. Table 1, going to open ace-10 suited from what's effectively the middle position. Table 2, going to open queen-9 suited also from what's the middle position. Table 1, my middle position open gets 3-bet by the big blind. This should be a pretty tight reserve formation. Table 4, the fishy big or small blind comes along rather, checks to me. I'll go ahead and put in a small bet on the 10-6-5 monotone board. He quickly calls, and the turn is the 4. More interesting, however, is table 1, what's going on facing that 3-bet from the big blind for a pretty healthy size. I'm going to defend pretty tightly here. However, ace-10 suited right around the cusp. I'm really not full defending even all my suited broadways here or weaker suited aces, but I will come along for this one and take a flop. Table 4, we check through on the turn. River's a 4 flush king. I've got queen high, no diamond. I'm going to go ahead and put in a bluff. Table 1, he goes ahead and bets 1/3 on the ace-queen 3 two-tone. Nothing to do but defend for a call with my ace-10. I'd like to be checking back the turn here if he allows me to. If he starts barreling, this gets a little bit dicier. We face a turn check. I'm content to check back and see the river. River's a nice blanky card right there. It shouldn't really improve too much. I guess he could have a little bit of pocket eights, but I expect that to mostly be calling from the big blind pre-flop. Now he goes and he bets a small bet. He bets about 1/3 a pot, 11.59 into 35.11. I'm obviously not folding this. I'm just trying to decide if there's any merit in trying to talk myself into raising here, moving all in for value, just because a lot of times these guys will level themselves into calling things like kings, king, queen, pocket jacks, a hand like ace-5 even against that raise. This is a little on the aggressive side, but I'm not letting that block bullshit slide on my watch, and I really don't think I can raise it as often as I would like to. Just because, I mean, it's tricky, or some, out of position. When they're out of position, they don't do it as much, but in position, when they block, they almost always call after you raise. I'm going to go after him here, though. Not that worried about pocket queens, because I think that would continue betting the turn. Pocket aces I've got blocked really heavily, and there's only one combination of it left. So I'm actually doing that there for value. I guess I could also have some bluffs. I mean, it's raising against the block bet is kind of dicey in some spots, but from the data I've seen overall in the 3-bet pots, when the regs are out of position, you actually can raise the block bet profitably. The exact hand and line and whatnot is going to come into play a good bit. There's certain formations where I want to be more like a middling size, like half pot, to really go after it and attack it, but the block bet you don't want to. But out of position, when they're out of position and you're in position, you can attack that block bet somewhat successfully. Table 3 here, going to 3-bet against that 2.5x button open out of my big blind with ace-jack. Table 1, I open 10-jack suited from the button. Heads up for a minute over here on table 3, going to open queen-8 suited. On table 1, going to open jack-8 suited from the cutoff. Get to check in for free on the first hand on table 3, the new table 3 with my queen 5. I'll check that flop on that jack 8 two-tone board. Turn is the ace. My queen eye has a smidge of showdown value here and no real potential. I'm just going to keep checking and see if he lets me show it down. He's short stacked. I didn't see if he posted or limped, but he probably limped, which means he could have a lot of ace-x in his range, because just that's how these fishy type guys tend to do, and he also tends to be too passive and lets me show down nonsense like queen high good more often than it should be. Let's see, we're going to go ahead and attack this 3x blind on blind open up here on table 1 with 9 deuce suited. I like to mix in a few weak janky suited hands in addition to suited broadways, decent pairs, suited connectors. I get jammed on, so just quickly go ahead and fold it, but I do like to go after those blind on blind opens reasonably aggressively. You know, usually 3-betting something like 17–18%. Got a limper middle position on table 4. Going to isolate from the cutoff with ace queen. Got a limp and a re-raise from the cutoff and button over here on table 1. I am going to go after that. Then we'll go ahead and make that 20. The limper, let's see, we get a small raise from a fishy player over here, and then the limper limp calls the raise and the re-raise. I've only got to call 550 into a pot of 2550, so I'm going to come along here. I'm just going to be very cautious, though, especially against this guy. Or I can flop a hand like ace queen 6, top 2 pair on the ace queen 6 rainbow board, and all of a sudden feel a lot better about my hand. I mean, I guess he could have the case aces or case queens and still have me beat. But I could also see a lot of hands like ace-king in his range that he is now in a lot of trouble. He just gave me such a good price pre-flop, I got no choice but to come along. I am going to go ahead and just start out the flop betting by stabbing at that small, use about the 30% size. The re-raiser comes along to check call. Table 1, I'm opening 7s from the button. Fairly innocuous turn, the offsuit 9 completing the rainbow. Table 1, I flop a set on ace-7-5, big blind check, so I'll go ahead and put in the small bet. Want to keep betting my top 2 on table 4. See, if I go about half pot, put about 94 in there, about 60 behind on the river. Let's size up a little bit, make it about 27 into 47. I'm going to go ahead and overbet the turn on table 1. We get a deuce that puts a backdoor flush draw up there. I guess it does complete the wheel straight as well if he has 4-3, but that shouldn't be a big part of his range. I'm really looking to attack his ace-x that can't get away. Now he jams me all in. You know, if he trapped with aces or queens, more power to him. I'm trying to get this money all in. He's got ace-king. I've got his stack. Everything is good. And while he's unlucky to see that flop where he ends up reverse dominating an ace-high flop where I flop aces and queens, in some ways he made his own bad luck with that janky pre-flop sizing, kicking my 450 up to 10 out of position. That really lets me come along and call with any two cards. And as you recall, I was saying I was already suspicious he was kind of strong for a loose passive player to be re-raised in an ISO like that. I'm not expecting that to be a well thought out, well constructed, thought out, and well balanced range from a player that I believe to be a fishy recreational type. So he's letting me get into the flop very, very cheap with the idea that I'm looking to make a very strong hand there. And so I was able to carry out a plan the way I wanted to against his sizing. So while he may be thinking he's unlucky, I would argue that he made his own bad luck in that particular spot. You get a limper, a small isolation from the button. I'm in the big blind with ace-9 suited. I often play 3-bet or fold here against these limp and isos because I'm not closing the action. I'm not expecting too many limp re-raises. This hand is going to play pretty well multi-way, and I'm getting a pretty good price for the small ISO, so I'm actually going to come along here and call that. Get a queen 3-3 rainbow board. Just check it. Table 1 opening ace-queen from the cutoff. Table 4 we checked in blind down blind with 6 deuce. He checks to me on the ace-10-8 two-tone. I'm going to just go ahead and stab at it. Now this guy goes ahead and he leads for 2 into 9. I've got the ace high and the backdoor flush draw. I'm just going to go ahead and defend that. Turn is the heart giving me the backdoor flush draw. Table 1 is interesting. We get a 4x 3-bet from the small blind against my cutoff open. I'm going to go ahead and put in a 4-bet bluff here with the ace-queen offsuit. Great combo for it. Table 4, my flop stab got called. I'm just going to sort of slow down with my 6 high. He calls the 4-bet, get a king 8 deuce rainbow board. I'm just going to go ahead and put in the small stab. I get let into all in, 60 into 4 on table 4. I'm just going to go ahead and fold my 6 high there. Against that 1/3 bet, 4 into 12 with the nut flush draw. I'm just going to go ahead and call that, get to the river, don't hit it. We'll just sort of take my ace high, continue checking, see if there's some way that it ends up being good. Let's see here. The ace-queen, I check back the turn. River is a flush closer, the jack of diamonds. He checks again. I've got ace-queen high. It's my worst hand because I've got aces, kings, ace-king, and ace-queen off. I'm going to turn this hand into the bluff, move it all in, see if I can punish a hand like queens or tens into folding. And it is my worst hand when I do have plenty of legit value, so I like to have some bluffs there too. No other bluffs in my range but ace-queen, as aces is an overpair, kings is top set, and ace-king is top pair, top kicker. And I can check a lot of those hands back on the turn naturally as well to put him in a spot where he may be risking bluffing into some nutted type hands on the river or to have some under rep value in the bet check bet line where I can still get stacks all in. And that bluff gets through. Was going to isolate the limper on table 4, but the cutoff player beat me to it, so I'll fold my king jack instead. Table 2, going to open 7s under the gun. Table 3, I'm facing a 2.5x open from under the gun. I am on the button with ace 4 suited. I'm going to go ahead and put in a 3-bet. Comes along for a call. We get a jack 8-7 rainbow board. I can have jacks, but I can't have 8s or 7s or 9-10. I wouldn't be surprised if these guys can call with some, if not all of those hands. I think I'm actually at a nut disadvantage here. I am going to go ahead and check back in position, even with initiative as the 3-flop 3-better. Just as that board is not good for me, or the particular range that I happen to have right here, and should be pretty good for him. However, he goes ahead and checks the turn again, so now I'm going to go ahead and start stabbing. I just don't think ace 4 high is going to be all that good at showdown, but I can have some hands that are actually going to bet for value, especially after range checking that flop. He quickly folds, so I'm not sure what he had. He must have had some small pocket pair below the board. Everything else seems to be the kind of hand that would have either led the turn or at least continued for a check call on the turn. Really thought I was going to have to find a river barrel to win that hand, but I'm happy picking it up on the turn too. Get a recreational player, open limps, middle position. I'm going to isolate from the cutoff with pocket tens. He's only about 20 blinds deep, so we're going to be looking to go after him here on favorable flops and just try to get the money in quickly. Small blind player on a broken stack calls. He's sitting about 70 blinds deep to start the hand. Not a dream flop for tens. Ace, jack, 3, two-tone. I am going to go ahead and put in a small bet against this guy. Mostly shutting down unless I happen to find that set of tens. The turn is an offsuit ace. I'm going to go ahead and check this one back, get to the river, continue looking for another 10. Now he leads into me for half pot. I mean, the small blind leads are not nearly as bluffy from fish type players. But that half pot bet still tends to be so bluffy. The check call, check bet line is about neutral or about typical. Now ace high flops tend to not be very good for bluff catching, as the Recs tend to have a lot of ace high in their pre-flop range. Let me take a look here. But the ace high flop doesn't really trend very well for me. And the fact that it's a small blind situation. I think this is probably neutral at best, and my blockers really aren't great here as I block the flush draws and straight draws. I'm actually going to go ahead and fold. I rarely fold to a half pot bet, but I think it's actually entirely justified there. You know, bad texture, bad position in that he's coming out of the small blind after me right there. That's not ideal either, as that's a lot less bluffy. And even then, I still think it's probably pretty close, and that's the spot where I'm actually going to use blockers to make a decision. I think I'd much rather call it the hand like 9-9, no club, so I'm not blocking any of the brick Broadway gut shot draws or flush draws. If I had really good removal with my hand as a bluff catcher, I think I would still call there. But given that it was pretty marginal at best to begin with and my removal was pretty nasty, I'm going to let the removal be the tiebreaker and just go ahead and fold instead. Table 3, going to open 10-6 suited from the button. Do have a fishy recreational player in the small blind playing very loose 62-0 with a bunch of limps over 13 hands. Big blind comes along as well as the small blind. Get a king 10-3 rainbow board. I do have the backdoor flush draw. I think I'm just going to be better served to go ahead and check this hand back. Turn is a 9, and then the fishy player leads for about 75% or so of pot, 5 into 7-13. Just going to go ahead and fold my marginal second pair against that size up and a multi-way on a board that's getting kind of coordinated, and there's no ideal rivers for me. Table 4, going to open aces blind on blind. Get called by the big blind. I'll check to him on the king 10-5 rainbow board. Table 2, opening ace 7 from the button. He checks back on the blind battle on table 4. I'm going to go ahead and start getting some money in the pot. Just use a small bet here. My hand's not super strong. I probably could put an overbet as well. It's pretty close, but the small bet's going to be okay. Now I get raised. I'm not sure what it is he thinks he's repping by doing that, unless he's just attacking the small bet. I'm going to go ahead and call. He's going to check down some decent value hands, like some King X and 10X that do that for protection and try to get some showdown. He could possibly even be value betting worse. Now he goes and he bets half pot. I'm going to think about this for a minute, but I just don't really see how I'm going to possibly fold here for a half pot bet with an overpair on a board that's really not all that scary. Here in a blind battle on top of that. I mean, these are all some pretty good reasons for me to call. That half pot bet is pretty overbluffed. I'm trying to think, what about that check raise bet line? The check raise bet line is not particularly bluffy. However, the half pot bet, I'm not that worried about the board texture. I'm going to go ahead and call this, make him show me 2 pair. He found 2 pair, but you know, I'm still going to make him show me some of the time. Table 2, going to open King 3 suited from the cutoff. 10-3 suited is an awful weak hand, but this recreational player open limp, so I'm going to try to sneak into that pot and see if I can't get involved with him. Table 1, get a recreational player, tries to limp on about a 35 blind stack, blind on blind. I'm going to go ahead and raise him up with my ace-queen. Table 2, my King 3 suited gets re-raised by the loose passive big blind, but he only pops me up from 250 to 5, so I am coming along for a call. Table 1, get a Queen Jack 5 rainbow board. I'm going to go ahead and bet him small. Table 4, I do have a flush draw on the Jack 8-6 two-tone board. Table 2, I get an Ace 5-3 two-tone board. I'm going to go ahead and check back my weak bottom pair. We get a 75% bet and a call. I'm going to go ahead and call with my 10 high flush draw over there. I banked the flush on the turn with the King of Spades. Going to continue checking. Table 2, he now leads into me about 70% or so of pot, 7 or just shy of 10. I'm going to go ahead and fold my weak pair. Lousy river. Perhaps I should have led the turn on that flush closer. I actually can have a lot of flushes in my range. It's okay to have a leading range in such a spot. I've got the 10, the Jack, the Queen, and the King are all out there. There's only one card that beats me, the Ace. As such, I'm going to go try to get some value, even though I don't have the nuts here. I'll be a little bit thinner, multi-way, but I think it's reasonable, especially since I only lose to one particular card. The recreational player calls me down with the 9, so I do get some value there. Table 2, I open Ace 10 from middle position. I'll check to the imposition player on 7-5-5. Table 4, the rec open limps. I'm going to isolate from my button with 10-7 suited. A little bit loose, but I think pretty reasonable, especially since he's a limper and we know he's a weak player. I want to be in the pot with him. So I like that idea better than folding. I'm not really all that big on limp and behind. He stabs for half pot. I do have a club in my hand, but I think I'm just going to go ahead and fold it. Be more inclined to continue with the ace of clubs. It's going to allow me to play a little better on some club runouts. Good flop for the 10-7. Jack 9-3 two-tone, giving me a gut shot and a flush draw. I'm going to go ahead and put in a small bet. He quickly calls. Turn is the 7. I now have a pair. I have some smidge of showdown value. I haven't outdrawn the 9s or the Jacks with that card. But I'm really not trying to make 9s or Jacks fold too much with barrels, so I'm really not that worried about it changing the fact that I could still be bluffing some hands. The hands that are mostly folding I'm now ahead of. He, however, leads into me 10 into about 15, 16. I've got a pair, a gut shot, and a flush draw. I'm going to peel that and see a river. River is pretty blanky. It's a deuce. Now he bets 24 into about 35, 36. He bets about 2/3. Trying to decide if there's any merit. They probably should not be bluff raising. Can I hero call this, I guess, is the next question. Table 3 will open 10-7 suited. Let me see here. Let me think about this one for a minute. That 2/3 size is pretty over bluffy. The check bet line, perhaps a little bit even more so than usual. Table 3, I'm going to go ahead and put in a small range bet here. I do have a gut shot and a backdoor flush draw. I wanted to hero call it, but I didn't get the chance. I timed out. It was probably a pretty marginal spot either way. I turned a pair with my 10-7 on table 3. Going to go ahead and check that back now. Try to get to the river as cheap as possible. Table 1, the button open limps. I'll check in my big blind with 7-5 suited. Now he overbets into me on the river. He bets 10 into 8. Reg type player. Table 1, I'm going to go ahead and lead with my small pair. That's a pretty neutral line, but the formation tends to be bluffy. A pretty neutral size, rather, and line. Although he does have a 4 straight river as well. I don't know. This may be a little bit too dicey to bluff catch here as well. I'm gonna fold it. Got me thinking about it though. He could conceivably have backed into those hands. Backed into some kind of 5x hand. Table 3, opening queen 10 from the cutoff. Table 4, going to open 5-4 suited from middle position. A little bit looser than normal, but I do have that special player in the small blind, so I'm looking to get involved with him as much as possible. Get called by the in-position player and both blinds. Get a decent flop for me, ace-6-3 rainbow with a backdoor flush draw. I will check sandwich between all these guys, but looking to continue one way or another. Turn is a 9 that puts a backdoor flush draw up through the big blind leads for half pot. I will continue with my open ender and evaluate on the river. Table 2, opening king 10 from middle position. Table 3, going to check on the king 9-4 to the in-position recreational player. I've got queen 10 for a gut shot. He stabs for half pot. I will check call my gut shot. On table 4, the river is a 10. Doesn't help me any, but he checks to me. I'm going to go ahead and bluff my 5 high at this point. Table 1, I'm opening ace-8. Table 2, going to go ahead and range bet small on king 7-6. Table 3, going to go ahead and check here on that deuce turn. Get check raised on table 2, I will fold. Table 1, I'll go ahead and put in a small range bet. I pick up the pot with the bluff on table 4. Table 3, I'm going to go ahead and lead the river as a bluff with my queen high. Try to fold him off. Marginal pairs, ace high type stuff. Get check raised on table 1. Got ace. I do have the backdoor flush draw. Some merit continuing on this just because diamonds are good cards for me. 7s are pretty decent cards. Even a 10's not that bad, or a 5's not that bad. I think I'll just err on the side of caution and fold though instead. This guy is a confirmed wreck as well, playing 46-8 with 20% limps through his first 2 orbits. This guy's got real nitty stats, but he's playing in a broken stack. He's not a traditional fish, but he's obviously not a strong player, being too nitty and not buying in for the correct amounts. Or for the full amounts, let's put it that way. Everyone folds to my big blind after the limper. I'm going to go ahead and raise him up with my jacks. Table 3, I checked in against the under-the-gun limper. Get a 6-5-3 two-tone board. Going to check to him my top and bottom pair. Table 4, going to go ahead and bet out small with my overpair on 10-5 deuce. Table 1, he goes and he bets strong. He bets 5 into 250. I'm far more likely to believe that that is some kind of overpair that wants protection or some kind of draw than it is a truly nutted hand like a set or a straight. I am going to go ahead and check raise this guy. Great turn card for me, having me fill up. I'm just going to go ahead and bet him small now. Get a limp and an ISO over here. I'm going to go ahead and go attack him with the king-queen. He calls. We got about 80% of pot left. I'm just going to go ahead and move him all in with my 6-3 full house. My Limp raise, re-raise. We get 4-bet by a player that's been tight so far for a sizing that doesn't let me do any calling. I'm just going to go ahead and fold that. Table 2 going to jab small after he checked back the flop. I do have a spade on that 3-spade board. Table 4 going to isolate the limper from the button with ace-queen suited. Table 2, going to turn 6s into a bluff and follow through there. Same thing with table 1, my 7 high. Didn't get paid off with the boat, but still got some value in there. Got the 6s through. Table 1, I get a lousy board for ace-queen against a fishy type player. You know, I mean, I still have jacks, 8, 7s, and 9, 10 suited, so I'm going to go ahead and put in the small range bet, but checking is certainly very reasonable, especially with the hand that I have. He comes along for the call. Table 3, opening 4-3 suited blind down blind. We'll check to the rec on the king jack 7 board. My river bluff on table 1 get raised. I'll just go ahead and fold my 7 high. Table 3 going to jab the turn small. Table 4 and I'll check back on that 4. Look to pair an ace or a queen to get some value on the river. He checks back. Trying to decide if there's any merit in bluffing or just trying to show this down. It's probably reasonably close either way. I think I'll just take the showdown here. It's against 7-10. Maybe I move him off that, but I do beat all his unpaired draws at the same time. Table 1, going to open ace-8 from the button. Table 2, get a 2.5x open from a reg in the cutoff. I am on the button. I'll be 3-betting my queens. Table 3, opening jacks from the cutoff. Table's looking good. Have recreational players, pretty decent, pretty decent loose, fishy recreational players on all tables. I'm going to see if we can't just keep that going. Hope to pick up some good spots against them. Table 4, get a limp, a limp. Decisions to the small blind, but I'll certainly be isolating these guys if he doesn't beat me to it. And if he does, I'll most likely be re-raising him. He limps in as well. I'm going to go ahead and pop this up out of my blinds with ace-queen. Use a nice large size. Going to pop it up to 7 with 4 already in the pot. Initial limper quickly calls. Should probably at least fold out the small blind. I fold out the second limper as well. Great flop for me. Queen 8-3 rainbow. Nice and dry. Strong hand. Not too scary. The only bad card is really a king. I guess some gut shots could complete on 9s, 10s, or jacks as well. Put in the small bet, and he quickly folds. Table 3, get a 2.5x open from middle position. I can defend my big blind with queen 10. Got an open ender on the ace-jack-9 two-tone board. He bets small. I don't really have too many strong value hands here. My aces and my jacks have 3-bet pre-flop. My 9s really have 2. I guess my strongest hand is going to be like ace-jack offsuit, ace-9 suited. As such, I think I'll probably just play this out of the call line. He doesn't know that I don't have value, so I could attack the small size with a good open-ended draw with a lot of equity as well. I think check calling's also going to be okay, and my range is awfully naked there. I get a board pairing card, an ace on the turn. I'm dead against the full house hands now already. Tough to play the draws out of position. Tighter formation. I don't really know there's too much merit in check raise bluffing this guy. I think what I would be doing is I would now be check raising my ace jack and my ace nine. Trying to decide what other hands I would put in to balance the bluff with there as well. I mean, an open-ender is a pretty good candidate, actually. I think we'll go ahead and give that a whirl. Mostly just give up on the river here, though. If he calls the turn check raise, I don't think he's all that weak, and he could even be trapping. Table 4, going to open king-queen on the button. I do like mixing in some potential bluffs. Now, the river I actually got there. It does complete the flushes, but I have to try to get value from ace-king, ace-queen, ace-10. Could be jamming into flushes, jamming into full houses, but that's how the game goes sometimes. I'm getting it all in when I actually hit. And he folds, actually, so I know he wasn't nutted. Table 4, I get the king, jack, 10, two-tone board. I've got top pair in the open-ender against a recreational player. He check calls the small flop bet. Turn is a 3 of diamonds, pretty blank, but does put a second flush draw up there. This is going to become overbet or check territory for me here, and a hand like king-queen is going to play very well, as I'm probably already the best hand, and it's going to play well on a lot of rivers. He comes along and quickly calls again. River is not the best card for me, a board pairing card, the jack. I think I just want to go ahead and check back and not pay off his jacks like jack 9, but at least I charged him big to get there and didn't pay off when he hits. Table 3, I would normally 3-bet jack 9 suited from the button against the cutoff open, but this guy is so nitty. 10-8 over 40 hands. I'm not treating him like a true cutoff open. I think his range is just going to be too tight and strong in that particular spot. Table 2, it's effectively the cutoff. I will open queen 10. Recreational player quickly calls. Get a king 6-5 two-tone board. I will check to the in-position player. Mostly check folding here. Not too much going for the hand, but I can pick up some cards that are pretty good for me on the turn. Turn is an offsuit 7. Probably a little bit more merit in just stabbing here and following through than check folding, but really no line is going to be all that great for this hand. Well, the ace shot to scare him away a decent bit. I am going to go ahead and follow through with my bluff with my queen high, try to fold him off some kind of pair plus draw type hand. A hand like 6-8, 7-8 will often call that turn and fold to the river. My ace-8 suited isolation get 3-bet by the button, who's been kind of tight passive so far. First 3-bet in 66 hands, 18 opportunities. Gonna go ahead and fold that and not think twice. Table 2, get a 2.5x open from the button. I'm in the big blind with ace-queen suited. Gonna put in that 3-bet. He comes along and calls. We get an ace-10-3 rainbow board. I will start off with a small range bet here. Feel pretty good about this hand on that board thus far. Comes along for the call. Turn is an ace. Gotta like that too. Is now, I think I want to keep betting this. I keep betting at least ace-king, ace-jack. Ace-king, ace-queen, ace-jack. Ace-10 could maybe even trap. Go ahead and put in that second barrel for half pot. Set myself up to jam the river. Folds to the second barrel. Table 4, get a 3x open blind on blind. Seems to be a reg type player as opposed to the usual recreational players I've been going up against all evening. Against that 3x open from a reg, I'll just defend my queen 9 suited for a call and go to the flop. Getty king 5-3 rainbow board doesn't help me too much, though I do have a backdoor flush draw. I guess a hand like the 10 or jack of diamonds is a pretty good card for me, all things considered. Table 3, gonna open 6s from middle position. Table 1, or table 4 rather, he just checks that board. I'm gonna go ahead and take a stab at it with my queen high. Table 2, gonna open king 9 suited from the button. Recreational player comes along, get a queen 10-6, two-tone board. I'll go ahead and put in the small range bet. Decent turn card for me on table 4 and 9. Gives me second pair. I'm content to check that back, move closer towards showdown, keep the pot smaller with a hand that functions pretty well as a bluff catcher and pretty lousy as a value hand in a bloated pot. Table 1, or table 3 rather, opening ace-5 suited from under the gun. Now, he rivers a 5. To the extent that he was check calling 5x on the flop, I no longer beat it. A more true brick, I would be looking to value bet my 9 here. I think there's a little more prudent to just try to show it down. I don't know if I'm getting value from ace high there or not. If anything, you should probably turn the ace high into a bluff, although I guess on the paired board is slightly relatively stronger, as there's 4 cards out there I can have paired up with to beat the ace high as opposed to 5. Table 1, I open king queen, or table 2, open king queen from middle position, big blind calls, get an ace jack 6 rainbow board. I'll go ahead and put in a small bet. Just looking to pick up my 10 for the Broadway straight. Doesn't happen, however, there is the 4 diamonds putting the backdoor flush draw up there. I do want to have some single diamond bluffs in my range. I suppose king queen with the king of diamonds, king queen with the king of diamonds is a prime candidate for that, so I have a good bluff on a flush closing river. And with the ace out there, the ace of diamonds is going to have showdown value on pretty much any river, so it's not going to be an ace of diamonds type hand. So I want to have some flush draws and some single diamond hands in my range here. Don't hit my flush, but I do get there on the river by making the nuts straight. Don't hit the flush to rep it, but I do get there on the river making the Broadway straight with the 10. We've got about 4x pot left. It's a little bit large of an overbet, but I've got the absolute stone cold nuts. I think I want to go ahead and put this guy to the test, see if he can hero call me down. He does not, but I like the idea of trying to get stacks. I guess I could maybe go more like 2 to 2.5x pot, but I think I want to try to get the whole thing. Table 3, my 3-bet gets called. Turn is a 10, which is an interesting card, as it now makes a possible ace-king straight out there. And he really shouldn't have too much of that, but I could, and I also block it and draw to it. Trying to decide what hands I should be continuing with here. I guess king 10 makes a pretty good bluff. This 5 doesn't really have showdown value, but it does block a set. I'm going to blast with it. Quickly folds the turn. Table 2, I defended the blind on blind with king jack. He checks to me on jack 8-5, so I'm going to go ahead and stab small with my top pair second kicker. I get check raise, but I'm not going anywhere with top pair over a single check raise in a blind battle. Not an ideal turn card there. The queen is now an overcard is hit and the straight has completed, and I don't have any draws or blockers to it. He continues blasting. I think I can just go ahead and make a fold without worrying too much about that. No real good rivers for me at that point, even a jack or a king. He's repping strength. Could be bluffing, but I'd much rather attack signs of weakness than go at guys that are showing strength. Table 2, opening 9-8 from the button. Table 4, opening ace-10 from middle position. Fishy player calls the small blind. I get a king-10-6 two-tone board. I've got second pair top kicker and the backdoor 4-card nut flush draw. I'll just go ahead and put in the small bet. He quickly folds. Tight passive player opens 3x blind on blind. I'll defend a bit more snug than I would normally because of his passive tendencies, but king-9 suited is still a very easy defense for a call. I'll get an ace-queen-deuce two-tone board. He bets small. I'll just go ahead and fold it with nothing really going on. No real good cards for me. Table 3, opening pocket 5s under the gun. Get a 2.5x open for middle position on table 3. I'm in the big blind with queen-7 suited. And that can be a defense. I can defend a lot of hands, a lot of suited queens. Maybe not all, but a lot against that size open. He is a bit on the tight passive side, so I might want to treat him like he's a bit more of a snug opener, but I can still defend most of my suited queens, even if I am doing that. So I'll call the queen-7. I'll check on the flop. Mostly be check folding this ace-9 deuce rainbow board here with no backdoor club draw. He min bets me. I feel like I'm getting exploited, but I also don't really know what I'm going to do with that hand on pretty much any run out that could happen later on. Table 4, recreational player open limps middle position. I'll gladly complete my small blind with pocket 3s and look for that third 3 on the flop. Don't see it, get a king-10-6 two-tone board. Just go ahead and check, planning to check fold. Bets 2 into 285, and I am directly out of there. Table 2, opening ace-6 from the button. Get 3-bet by the small blind. It's also playing a bit shorter. Just go ahead and fold. No reason to think about continuing with a hand like that. Table 1, opening king-queen from the cutoff. Recreational player comes along out of the big blind. Get a queen-7-5 two-tone board. I'll start off with the small range bet. Look to be blasting a lot of turns. Pretty much any nice clean blank safe turn I'm going to be overbetting. Now he check raises me small. Got pretty strong top pair. Also got a spade in my hand to block flush draws and backdoor some flush runouts on flush turn river combos. Going to continue there for sure, especially against that smaller size. That doesn't scare me too much. Turn is a 5, so if he had check raised me with the 5, he now has trips, but it also means it's harder he has a hand like 5-7 or 5-5. He bets 1/3 on that card. Very happy to continue with my top pair against that small size. River is a 4 that does complete the straight with 6-8, but other than that is pretty innocuous and safe. He bets small again, about 1/3 pot. I'm just going to go ahead and call that down. And we're against Queen 7, so he had queens and 7s. The 5 slowed him down some, actually, which it probably should. Good thing I didn't hit a queen somewhere along the way. I might have started to think I really had something going on against that guy and would have been against the boat. Also glad I didn't have to pay all that much money to get that hand towards showdown there with the small 1/3 bet. Table 2, gonna check my small blind with ace-3 suited against that cutoff limper. I'll check the flop on the king 10-7 two-tone board. He checks back. I'm gonna go ahead and stab small with my ace high. Plan to follow through on the river, see if I can fold out some goofy pairs that aren't all that strong but still beat my ace high. So I'll follow through with the bet. He calls me down with 9-7, having rivered 2 pair, which is completely correct and reasonable. Very loose passive, 46-2 over 47 hands on a 40 blind stack. Min raises under the gun. I've got ace-queen. I will not be 3-betting this guy at that stack depth where the jam totally screws me, and with him being so, just so nitty pre-flop with the raises. And I'm getting a great price to call. So I'll go ahead and call and check the flop. Get an ace-ace-4 flop. Table 1, there's a raise and a re-raise in front of me with pocket 5, so I'll go ahead and fold. And I could lose to ace-king here, but... And he bets 3 into 428. I will go ahead and call with my trips. I now have quads, nothing to really worry about here. He's kind of fishy. I think he's strong. I think he's strong pre-flop, which means he's going to have a hand like kings, queens, maybe jacks. He may not be able to get away from a full house here, but he can probably check back. I'm going to go ahead and actually lead against this guy to kind of handcuff him. Go ahead and bet about 7 into 10. And he just clicks it back. Maybe he gets away if I jam, but I don't know. I think I'm just gonna flat and just like donk jam the river. River's the 10. 22 into 36 is what he has left. I'm just gonna go all in. He pays me off. I'll look and see what he had. I bet it's going to be a hand like pocket kings from a player that doesn't understand things like relative strength. He had king queen, so he actually only had a high card. I don't know why he decided to just go crazy and spaz out when I led the turn, but he really could have just folded that turn in that spot. But some of these guys play cash games like tournaments, and every once in a while it's just their time to die. Don't understand it, but I'm happy it happened when I was there with an actual hand. Table 4, get a 3x open from middle position. I am in the big blind, or the button rather, with pocket kings. I'll be 3-betting that. The only real nuance is we're about 150 blinds deep in this hand. As such, I'm going to size up a little bit larger. Instead of going to about 10, I'm going to go to about 12. Table 2, get a 2.5x open from the button, but he's awfully nitty. I will still defend with a hand like ace-5, and I'm really going to be fold most of my weak offsuit aces against this guy's 2.5x open because he's just been so reserved with his button opens, or his opens in general. We'll check call that quarter bet on ace-6-4 rainbow and a bit of weak top pair. Continue checking the turn. Table 3 can go ahead and put in a small bet with the pocket 5s, mostly giving up unless I hit a third 5 somewhere along the way on the jack 7-8 two-tone board. Table 2, he checks back the turn. That's a board pairing 6. River's a 10. I'm going to go ahead and lead for value, hope he can call by some kind of goofy pocket pair or 10x rather than give him a chance to check back. I think betting is better than checking here. Calls with another ace to chop. Played very reasonably in my opinion. Table 3 with that board pairing jack, putting the second flush draw up. Just go ahead and check back and look for that 5 on the river to bluff or to value bet or raise. He goes ahead and continues checking. I'm going to go ahead and turn this hand into a bluff on the river, try to fold out hand like 8x, 7x. And he finds a check raise, and I will find a fold. Table 2, everyone checks around on that king, king, deuce rainbow board. Turn is a third king that also completes the rainbow. I'm going to go ahead and jab small with my queen 10. Doesn't do very well if I check. Whether or not I face a bet, the facing bets is going to be an auto fold. But I can pick up that pot a decent bit when no one showed any desire to take it on the flop, and I do have some removal to the slow paid kings now with the queen and the 10 in my hand. Table 1, going to open king 7 suited under the gun. It's a bit looser than normal, but there's a recreational player in the blinds I want to get involved with, so we're going to go in there and try to play another hand. Folks around to the big blind who calls get a king, jack, jack rainbow board. I'll go ahead and bet that small, then be checking back pretty much any turn. Table 2, get a 2.5x open to the gun. I'm in the cutoff with ace jack suited, going to put in that 3-bet. I get called with my king 7. Turn is a 5 that puts a backdoor flush draw through the spade draw, which I actually have. I'm content to check back my weaker king. Not trying to blow him off a better king or a jack. I don't expect that to really happen very much, if ever. But I am content to sort of get this closer to showdown, pick up bluffs from stuff that misses, or try to peel my spade on the cheap. And now he's in a lot of trouble unless he managed to hit pocket 5s or pocket 8s. He goes ahead and leads the river small. I'm going to go ahead and put in the raise for value with the flush. Just mash the pot button here against that little blocker bet. And he blocks and calls, and my hand is good. Table 1, I open king jack suited, get called by both blinds, one of whom is a rec. We get an ace king 3 two-tone board. Going to go ahead and check that one back multi-way. Turn is a 3. You know, that king is very protected. There's really no bad cards except for flush closers, and even those aren't the end of the world in the check line. There's still so many other hands that aren't part of the flush part of his range. Get led into about a quarter pot here on the ace king 3-3 double flush draw board. I will flat with my king jack here at least once. The rep comes along as well. I'm not expecting too much in the way of bluffs from this player here now with both of us involved in that pot. And he goes and overbets. I'm quite content to fold my king jack in that particular line. And I'm going to be shutting down the session here next time my orbits come around to the big blind. Let's see what he called me down with on that blocker situation. He called me down with king 7, but not with the flush. So me going spade was the difference maker in that hand. And he went and used that small blocker bet on the river, trying to get his hand to showdown for cheap. And then when he faced a raise, he told himself that I'm going to be attacking that small bet too much and he needs to call down. Which may not be incorrect necessarily, but I also actually have legitimate value hands in the range as well, such as the king 7 of spades, which I had. Hold the ace under the gun over here on table 1. Fold the 10-4 middle position on table 2. Table 3 is done. Table 4 is done. Do have one more hand coming around on table 1. Hopefully it's a good one. It's not. It's Queen 7 offsuit, which I will fold. So I'm going to wrap up the session here and now. Till next time, this is Charlie Murphy signing off. Thank you very much for watching my video.